the Timcast conversation with Max Blumenthal is definitely interesting. I want to show you guys this guy. Don't know his name. He introduced himself as an anti-communist, anti-counter-revolutionary fighter. Now, I have no idea if this guy was fucking serious when he said that, because that's so absurd to say. But he introduced himself with a sound. Let me see if I can find the timestamp. I didn't have it planned because this is a 2-hour show, and because of Max Blumenthal, I got maybe an hour into this. I watched more Tim Pool watching this show than I did combined, period.
Anything.
All the clips,
of anything.
I got like an hour in. So I got timestamps to shorten this segment on exchanges I think are important. Let me show you guys this one, because I think this is when he introduces himself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte, very failed musician, vocalist for All That Remains, anti-communist, and counter-revolutionary.
Hey, guys.
See, once again, I don't know if he's serious or not, because he introduced himself as an anti-communist. Do you guys know the atrocities that anti-communists inflicted on the global South? They killed 20% of the Korean population. They starved the North Korean people simply because they chose a different economic model than them. So it's going to be very interesting. This guy who praises anti-communists, right? I really gotta be careful whether this guy was joking or not, because based on his argument,
I think he's serious. I think he's serious because, I mean, just right there, like, because they're all introducing each other, and he's not joking. Nobody's laughing, and I believe he says something to that effect in multiple interviews. Like when he interviews people, they kind of go around and says stuff like that. They kind of, I'm not saying him, but I'm saying at the show, that's what they do. They kind of go around and let the person kind of introduce themselves. But I think because he uses anti-counter-revolutionary and anti-communist, I believe that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't need two punchlines. Like, one of them would be a punchline that I'm against.
Yeah, so I will always have that caveat on the beginning of this segment that he may be joking, but based on his arguments I see in this debate, he's not, because he has counter-revolutionary beliefs. He's a clear anti-communist. And it's weird that he is like, oh my God, the atrocities of Hamas. He doesn't try to this debate. Do you know what the fuck counter communism? There's millions of people that was killed. Ask John Bolton. Ask the Reagan administration. And who's the person that I'm blanking on his name? The person that Biden just hired. Elliot Abrams. Ask Elliot Abrams about his anti-counter communism tactics. So there have been all these people that was victim of torture, all these gross actions, but you're anti-communist, but you want to take the more high ground on this issue. So one thing I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna get to this video next now, Tim Pool was actually way more chill than I thought he would be in this interview, because I don't know that much about Tim Pool. I know him as a culture warrior. Anything I see about him, he in the culture war. But I view he probably someone who's very hard to diagnose politically, because he's anti-war, into the culture war, repeat right-wing talking points. But he immediately acknowledges, like, Max Blumenthal is out of his league. So he tried to put back. He asked Max like these follow-up questions, right? And then immediately he's smart enough to realize, like, man, I can't debate this motherfucker. So good point, Max. I need to bring someone on that can dispute it. Meanwhile, this anti-communist guy, he keeps going at Max, and then Max will slap this motherfucker down with facts. Then he will get emotional. Max will slap him down with facts again. And then he would be quiet. And I know it's something around the 40 to 50 minute mark. And I'm summing this up because we're not going to show you the whole thing. He kind of chill out because he realized, his anti-communist guy realized he's out of his league. Like, and he stopped being as combative. That's why I'm going to show you guys this part, because I believe this part up next is the most combative that I saw. If you're interested, I do recommend watching this, not because of Tim Pool, but because I want you guys to see how to disarm and destroy these Zionist people. I was extremely impressed by Max. He's definitely a much better person to have in this place than me and many other people. So let's start here.
Agreed.
Because I would
probably... It's for his demeanor. Specifically for his demeanor. Knowledge. It's great to have his knowledge, but knowledge with the same demeanor he has in this particular context, with so many people watching, you're going to get more ears by calmly just kind of swatting shit away. So, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's watch this here. We got a lot to get through here, so I was trying to let it play a bit. Max does a good job, so I don't know if I even had to interrupt a lot because Max destroys them. I want to do that preface so guys know what to expect. So for a second time, I'm gonna let Lyle this place, CJ.
Into Israel, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry, into Israel. There's plenty of evidence that they killed innocent people. There's plenty of evidence that they, carried out what amounts to a terror attack. It's not a military operation. There's plenty of evidence. So
there are videos you don't want to watch.
Absolutely. And I don't need to believe that they were cutting off babies' heads to condemn the attack on Israel. So, if it turns out that it happened, I'm not shocked. I mean, I was alive when ISIS, when the
so what he does here is connect the Palestinian resistance with ISIS, as you can see him continue. And of course, Max is going to cut his head off on this point.
Islamic State was in existence, and I saw videos of them cutting off people's heads and doing terrible things. I remember 9/11. You don't need to have this particular thing to be real to be like, okay, terrorists do really horrible, horrible things.
Can you pause it right there? Because he's making a point. He's making a point that is the design of propaganda. Absolutely. And I covered this in the I Am the Revolutionary series where I covered the father of propaganda. You don't have to believe the specific items, but propaganda over the years creates the conditions for you to believe a silly bullshit over there, silly bullshit over there. You may not believe all of them. It just needs to get you to believe some in certain instances. That's all propaganda is trying to make fertile ground for multiple lies to blossom. You get what I'm saying? Some may not, some may blossom. So that's the point. It's curious though, because he doesn't even know he's making the point, but he doesn't know he thinks what he's thinking because of propaganda. He doesn't even know that's what's happening. Yeah, he doesn't even get that, but go ahead.
So Max is going to knock this point down, but you guys see how he ties Palestinian resistance, which they had the legal right to do against their violent genocidal state, to 9/11. He invokes 9/11 and ISIS. So I will shut up because Max destroys him on this point. And this is a consistent theme in this conversation where this guy, who is literally the main center of detention, like Tim Pool was actually chill. Like from what I've seen, like he put back on Max, which you would expect, but he would chill. This guy was unhinged and he got destroyed. So
Tim knows.
Tim
knows he doesn't know. And that's one thing about Tim. I've seen a couple of, because I covered 2 interviews from him. When he doesn't know, he was just, hey, I don't really know. So I'm not even going to try and act like I pretend like I do. So that's one good thing about him. But you can continue with the video if you want.
Terrorizing people.
I'm curious what you think, Max.
Yeah, I would be shocked. First of all, because Hamas is mortally opposed to ISIS and Salafi elements. They've actually battled them in the streets in Rafah before. They consider them a threat to their stability. And Israeli intelligence actually has worked with Salafi elements in Gaza to destabilize Hamas, just as Israeli intelligence supported Hamas to destabilize the PLO when it controlled Gaza in the 1980s. So I would be shocked if they employed something like this. The only source so far on...
So I just want you guys to know, Max Blumenthal just dismantled this point immediately, just right there. But I'll let it continue.
This story is one Israeli soldier who's a very interesting character. We've traced his identity at the Gray Zone. And it comes through a state-sponsored Israeli media organization, as you pointed out, I-24, the reporter Nicole Sedek, who just went to Kfar Aza and said, I'm hearing that babies were beheaded.
Right.
Then the Israeli Foreign Ministry goes and blasts it out, 40 babies beheaded. Why? Because the U.S. bombed the crap out of ISIS in Raqqa. We destroyed half of the city of Raqqa, and that's what Israel wants us to do to Iran. They want us to see Hamas as ISIS and then to get involved in their regional conflicts. So they're pushing this story. The source is a Israeli soldier named Davidi Ben-Zion, who is a settler leader. He's from one of the fanatical wings of Israeli politics, and he, he's a reservist. He's serving in the military. But he got in trouble earlier this year because he called for an entire Palestinian village to be wiped off the map next to his illegal settlement in the West Bank. And he's the guy that she's interviewing as her credible witness. I don't trust it. And as you said, Israel has enough to go on right now to try to portray itself, even though it's the occupier and besieger of the Gaza Strip, according to international law, to portray itself as a victim. Why do they need to do this? It's because they're trying to draw the U.S. in.
I agree with that for sure. Because that's why everybody immediately brings up the New Year testimony. What will shock Americans to the most extreme degree to justify U.S. involvement?
You should break that down, though. Like
the New Year testimony.
Yeah.
I mean, I can break it down. We have the Wikipedia pulled up. False testimony given to the United States Congressional Human Rights Caucus, October 10th, 1990, by a 15-year-old girl who was publicly identified by the time by her first name, Nayira. The testimony was widely publicized and was cited numerous times by U.S. senators and George H.W. Bush in their rationale to support Kuwait in the Gulf War. In 1992, it was revealed Nayira's last name was Al-Sabah and that she was the daughter of Saud Al-Sabah, the Kuwaiti ambassador to the U.S. Furthermore, it was revealed that her testimony was organized as part of the Citizens for a Free Kuwait public relations campaign, which was run by the American public relations firm Hill and Knowlton.
So this part, they actually do a good job explaining how the U.S. uses these psyops, which I was surprised to see Tim Pool cover this. So he actually covered this part. We did this breakdown before. So I'm gonna fast forward to this part here. Around 18 minutes, we're at 16 minutes now. Around 18 minutes get really good. So I want to make sure we get to that point. So I'll play from here.
Which is to deflect from the obviously true real videos of babies being killed by Israeli airstrikes all across the Gaza Strip. When I was in Gaza in 2014, I went to Khan Yunis, which is in the southeast, had been completely destroyed at its eastern edge by the Israeli military. And the casualties were so intense that the hospital started filling up in Khan Yunis. And I went to a small hospital and talked to the head of the hospital, and he showed me photos. And these photos are on my Twitter page from the time, all real. He had to bring in from local shops ice cream coolers to store dead babies in because the mortuaries had run out of space.
What Max is doing right now, because Tim earlier was talking about how he's concerned about whether the beheaded babies are true or not. We know that Palestinians are targeting civilians. So what Max is accurately doing is explaining the Israeli crimes where they targeted civilians, which is what I said earlier. Israel set the terms of engagement. So you guys can't be surprised when any Palestinian.
And now we see Israel attacking the hospital in Beit Hanun in the north is completely out of commission. All of these hospitals are coming under attack. So babies are dying in the Gaza Strip. There's video right now. Jackson Hinkle just tweeted a video of a father carrying his baby out of the rubble. There's another video on Times of Gaza, a local publication, of a father putting his infant daughter to sleep for the last time. And they've completely erased these casualties. They've always been erased. And that's part of what fuels the violence and the ruthlessness that we see from these fighters, is that they want to avenge what they call their martyrs. And that fuels what is, referred to as the cycle of violence. That's the invisibilization of them.
So you think that some Hamas fighters, they target civilians because civilians in Gaza are targeted?
Well, first of all, let's point out.
I'm curious about this answer right here.
Yeah, this is where it gets good, because the counter-revolutionary is going to chime in and try and pretend he has the moral high ground over Max Blumenthal, even though he supports anti-communism, which killed millions and millions of people. So to keep that in mind.
And never showed this. Fox never showed this. They targeted military bases, primarily military bases like Nahal Oz, that are maintaining the siege of Gaza, and they overwhelmed those bases and humiliated the fourth most powerful military on the planet with a blue water navy with nuclear weapons. Some of these fighters were filmed entering the bases with no shoes on. They're using homemade weapons, AK-47s, paragliders, fishing boats to get in. This is not a powerful army, and they humiliated them and Israelis' vaunted intelligence services. So they don't want to talk about that. And yes, they went in. A lot of these kibbutzim are right next to the bases. I've been to them.
Yeah, but they did, like, I mean, this is a terrorist attack. They went to a music festival and started killing people. So I get what you're saying. Like, they are definitely the underdogs and stuff. But like, to classify it, to try and point out that it's, or to make it, to legitimize it as an actual military operation, I think totally glosses over the fact that they attacked civilians intentionally. They did.
It was a military.
I'll let Max destroy him. Listen.
And Israel is now attacking civilians intentionally.
They're not targeting.
Israel has a doctrine of targeting civilians intentionally. It's called the Dahiyya doctrine. And
so you guys realize he destroyed this man in literally less than 15 seconds.
Because this is a person this is a person who believes I know the entire story based off the propaganda I've been told. Yes. And Max is a person I know the entire story because I've been there and I actually read shit. You get what I'm saying? It's a completely different sort of understanding of the topic that he's not going to be able to ever. That's why you say around a 50-minute mark. He kind of gives up. He's just I can't do this. Go ahead.
And if you watch the whole thing, let me know. But I only made it about an hour mark. I know it's like 20, like in the last 20 minutes, from 40 minutes to an hour, the guy kind of gives up going this hard at him. And then Tim Pool later said, like, man, we need to bring someone who's on the pros Israeli side. At that point, they were so defeated. And I forgot to say in my preface, fam, I wish I could show you guys the live chat. If you watched it, because I saw the live chat up on my YouTube when I was watching it, bro, the live chat was fucking seething because Max Blumenthal was destroying this motherfucker. And Tim Pool has a right-wing Zionist audience.
Yeah.
Bro, if you guys want entertainment, watch this and just scroll the live chat. There were so many people that was saying, Max is a terrorist, Hamas sympathizer, worst guest ever. Fuck this guy. This guy is evil. But meanwhile, Max Blumenthal destroying their show host with facts, and they were seething the way I never seen before. It's such a giant W for Max. But I'll play that part again because this guy.
I was just gonna say rewind in like 10 seconds or
and
so.
I can lay out.
I rewind in 10 seconds because I want you guys to see how fast Max Blumenthal destroys his point. This guy, his premise is that Israel is in the right because Palestinians are terrorists. Meanwhile, Israel don't purposely go after civilians. Watch how easily Max destroys this point here.
Planet with a blue water navy with nuclear weapons. Some of these fighters were filmed entering the bases with no shoes on. They're using homemade weapons, AK-47s, paragliders, fishing boats to get in. This is not a powerful army, and they humiliated them and Israelis' vaunted intelligence services. So they don't want to talk about that. And yes, they went in. A lot of these kibbutzim are right next to the bases. I've been to them.
Yeah, but they did, like, I mean, this is a terrorist attack. They went to a music festival and started killing people. So I get what you're saying. Like, they are definitely the underdogs and stuff. But like, to classify it, try and point out that it's, or to make it, to legitimize it as an actual military operation, I think totally glosses over the fact that they attacked civilians intentionally. They did.
It was a military operation, and Israel is now attacking civilians intentionally.
They're not targeting.
Israel has a doctrine of targeting civilians intentionally. It's called the Dahiyya doctrine, and I can lay out what it is. But they believe that if they attack civilians and humiliate them, they will overthrow. They will eventually rise up against their government. They tested it against Hezbollah.
Can you pause it? This is the same concept of sanctions. This is the same concept of sanctions is being delivered in a different way, but because it's a more direct sort of infliction of harm and death, whereas sanctions is a slow. So it's the same intent. Change your leadership, change your leadership, change your leadership. Change your regime. But go ahead with the video.
Yeah, there's we got maybe another 5-10 minutes on the segment. We got tons of stuff to cover. There's another crucial point we must hit. So I'm gonna let it play for a bit and now add my context. This is just brilliant slang by Max Blumenthal, calling out this counter-revolutionary on this lie, the lie that everyone is perpetuating in liberal media who's a Zionist, that Israel don't target civilians. That's why they had the moral high ground over Hamas, who does. That is a lie. Like I said, Zionism has no intellectual, moral, or legal argument. Let's continue.
Not at all.
And it's being used against the civilians in the Gaza Strip. They want to lower their morale so much that they actually turn on
you're
Hamas.
Still talking about you're talking about a retaliation, right? Like, because like I said, again, this initially started, and granted, I don't know the details about where if they attacked the.
So you shouldn't be trying, man, because this is about to be embarrassing.
The military bases or whatever, and I'm not trying to push back on that, but the idea that this is just a military operation, they specifically went and started killing people at the festival. Like, I mean, it has all of it reminds me of the Bataclan in Paris. Like, it's a terror attack. The point is so maybe if you want to say that the Israelis are terrorists as well, fine. Like, I'm not here to defend Israel, but the idea that the initial attack was a military operation or exclusively military, they attacked people and they went after civilians and killed people at a show.
When Max started to bring this up, I mean, I'm not interjecting because I want to hear what you have to say about what were they targeting in terms of military targets. I don't think it makes sense for Hamas to come in and just literally only target a music festival. Obviously, I think it's reasonable that they targeted a wide breadth of things. But I do agree with Phil. I mean, the problem is one of the arguments we're hearing is that they're breaking out of an open air prison. Well, okay, absolutely. I mean, I know people who are the families of those in Palestine, those who have come from Gaza, and absolutely have heard these arguments. But to then see them going to music festival, like a music festival, and laughing about it, you know, and grabbing people and throwing them on the ground. I mean, I suppose the argument is the videos are all fake or something, but there's videos of the guys walking up the cars and just shooting regular
think
people,
about
like
the
just in their
concept
cars.
of what they're trying to get you to believe. Think about the concept. Like, let's go with it being true. These people, music festival, they target. So you're trying to say there's some sort of equivalent to a system that puts people in concentration camps. Yeah, that's okay. But then these militants, or whatever you want to call them, go and do something at a music festival. I'm just trying to understand the argument why you're trying so hard to push this. Like, what is the point that you're making here? Is what I'm saying.
That's a good. There's no point. Once again, Israel set the terms of engagement, so they are the one who set the terms that civilians are open targets. Now, once again, the Palestinian responses, all these motherfuckers are served in IDF. There's no real civilian in a military police state, and anyone who occupies and benefits from the military police state is a fair target, especially when Israel does not negotiate unless there are hostages. Whether you guys will agree with that or not, that sentiment make you angry. You should be upset with the United States and Israel for setting the situation up where Gaza and Hamas had to retaliate the same way that Israel would. So I let Max take from here. There's just only a few more minutes I want to play, so we don't got that much longer.
I was gonna say, like, we got to do the Lindsey story, but if you want to cut the LeBron story just to give this another 10 minutes, we could do that.
Yeah, we can do LeBron. We can always do LeBron on Saturday.
LeBron another day, or whatever. So we could do that.
Yeah. So there's I'll let Max take from here because there's a lot of cover here.
Who have no idea what's going on.
I'll give my thoughts after it's finished.
Israeli doctrine of targeting civilians called
Dahia doctrine, and they also, if you look up Israel and mowing the lawn,
I was going to say this earlier, but it was like it wasn't enough said. But that one line makes me want to say this now. These are three people who want to believe propaganda. Yeah, I'm starting from the point that I want to believe this. Now discredit me. He just gave you all types of factual evidence that you're pushing away, and now you want to research, you want to look it up so you can figure out the way to tear it down. When you don't have any idea of it, it's because you want to get to a point. You need to get to a point in the narrative. You see, this is some freaking nonsense. You're not looking up to learn. You're looking it up because you want to be able to attack it because you want to stay in the same position.
Yep, and that was the live chat, CJ. Everyone in the live chat fucking seething. For real, guys, if you want to have a laugh, look at the live stream tab to this. Actually, can I pull it up? Let me see if I can pull it up. Actually,
pretty sure it's.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but it'll be funny to see. Actually, it's not really this. Max line about Israel here. Facts, Phil. Max is a Palestinian supporter. He loves Allah. Max is not a credible source. And I'll just read a few, fam. It was literally the entire hour of them melting down at Max, fam. And what did he say that was inaccurate? I'm not going to read this whole chat there, but it's funny.
And I'm sure they're not adding factual evidence. They're just saying they're mad and he's this. Just labeling names, just vibes, Nick. Has nothing to do with evidence. Has nothing to do with no, well, that treaty said this too. Is none of that is going to come up. But go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a few more minutes here. Let's continue.
Doctrine, and they also, if you look up Israel and mowing the lawn, that's a common term that the Israeli military uses.
That ain't just the Israeli military. Blood makes the grass grow, homie.
No, but I brought this up before when I think I brought this up when I was on PBD on Saturday when this all went down. Back when Protective Edge happened in 2014. I did not cover this stuff. Mine was civil unrest, not civil war, not war.
Yeah, I'm gonna fast forward here because I don't give a fuck. Let's just for a second time. Let's see. 27 minutes. So let's get 27 minutes. I see that in my notes. He may say something important here, but I don't really give a fuck. We got limited time. So I'm marked 27 minutes down as important. So let's play it and let's see.
So when rockets come flying from Gaza, and start blowing up over Tel Aviv. And this was huge, right? This was like 2014 when the rockets first started reaching Tel Aviv. Was that? Because I remember I had a friend in Tel Aviv.
I was there at that time. Yeah.
Messaged me freaking out on Facebook that a rocket exploded over her house and this has never happened before. And she doesn't know what to do. And I'm like, man, this is horror. It's horror. It's war. It's terrifying. How do we stop this? And so what ends up happening is every time I've engaged with it, again, not an expert on this stuff. I mean, I probably might know a little bit more than the average person, but it's like, I appreciate your perspective. I'm glad you're here to tell us about this stuff too, because I think only talking to people who are on the more pro-Israel side is going to leave us, blind to the arguments from the other side. Yeah. But I hear Israel, they're using hospitals and schools and civilian areas to launch rockets from, knowing that it will make it extremely difficult for Israel to stop the rocket fire into civilian areas. Then I hear the same thing. But a media tower is taken down for what purpose? Why is Israel targeting this? And every time I hear this, my
media's communications.
I fall right back to, this is war. And in war, there's no rules. Rules are for, it's like this idea of war crimes I always find so silly. Like, obviously, we think some things are so egregious that even in war, they're a crime. But the people who win those wars don't care what you think because you're gone. And so when I look at what's going on in Israel and Palestine, I know that you've got two factions that are going to use whatever arguments, whatever psychological warfare, whatever physical warfare they can to try and win this. And I know that there probably is a right side and someone's telling the truth. And I know for a fact there's an objective truth and lies to what's going on. I don't know how to navigate that.
Well, just two.
Can you pause it right here? Go ahead.
There's a reason why I want to share that. So you guys see how Tim is conflicted on this issue. You guys see this is what happened when you have no, what's the best term? You have no theory behind your politics. You have no guiding principle behind your politics. So the Israeli-Palestine issue is not confusing to me because it's an issue of settler colonialism. And he mentioned how who gets away with war crimes? War crimes, essentially whoever wins get away with it. You guys know the only reason why Israel get away with their war crimes is because they had the backing and the veto power of the United States. So you're supposed to start there. You also start with the point that Israel is inherently in the wrong because they're the one who are implementing colonial genocide. So the people who are engaging in self-defense, why will you lash out on them? Isn't the founding principle of the country give me liberty or give me death, fighting against tyranny? So why are you confused about where to land on this issue, Tim? He's like, I'm confused. Man, war is complicated. I don't know where to land. It's easy. Who is the victim of colonialism? You notice how these white people, they don't start there? They don't start like, who's the victim of colonialism? They see the people fighting against colonialism, and they view them as just as guilty as the violent colonialist. It's unbelievable.
What I also find,
go ahead, CJ.
What I also find funny here is that this is people who are on a side. They don't let evidence guide their side. They just on the side, and they're going to stay on the side regardless of evidence, because clearly what the stuff that Max said could have convinced them completely. Oh, I'm now pro-Palestinian. But you see how it took propaganda, lies to get you on the side of Israel. But facts only move you to the middle. So now you're just saying, well, this is a war. This is a conflict. You're never willing. And I find this with white people who are giving analysis. They're never willing to go sort of beyond, okay, yes, this is a colonial settler project. It's never going back to the genesis. It's always, it always fails to get to that point. Yeah, is my point. So but go ahead.
So I'm gonna play Max's response to what just Tim said, and then we can wrap the segment. I will highly suggest. I know Tim Pool may be hard to watch because there's a reason why I pick parts here, because a lot of it like waste of time, like watching the show. This is the most I ever watched Tim Pool combined. I highly recommend watching this so you guys can learn how to dismantle Zionist talking points, because Max responded in the perfect way, in my point of view. I don't know how I would handle this debate. My ego wanted to tell me I would have did well, right? But you never know. You never really know when you're debating Zionists and people that say ridiculous stuff like the counter-revolutionary. So Max is the perfect person to learn how to do this from. So even though I'm going to play just a little bit more, I do highly recommend watching this in your spare time, because from the hour I've seen, Max did a good job. And you see that even Tim Pool had to be like, man, I need to have Israeli side to explain this shit. And so y'all need to explain. I want to follow your direction, but whew, that's a lot to take in. And then the counter-revolutionary gives up. Go ahead.
And watch when he does have that person, how easily it doesn't take them to be on the side. They're going to say a couple of words. Oh, well, I'm on that side now. You see how, you get what I'm saying? Like, it takes a mountain of evidence just to move you to the center. But it takes you almost no evidence and a lot of propaganda to move you to the right or to the Israeli side. That's a tell to me.
Yeah. So I'll play Master's response so you guys can hear, and then we can wrap.
Points on that. I mean, there's this issue of human shields. Like Biden said, Palestinians are human shields. That's a way of basically saying there are no civilians there at all. And the Gaza Strip is one of the most densely populated places
like
on
2
Earth.
million people.
There's it's 2 million people jammed. Why are they there? By the way, that most of them are refugees, and they have to be there because they're not Jewish. They can't go back to the land of their families pre 1948.
So how is that? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but how is Palestinians using human shields with that fact? Sean Hannity, Zionist. When you reconcile that fact that they can't leave, how can you say that Palestinians are using human shields? In fact, that is quite disgusting. But anyway, let me continue because Max is on fire.
Kids, they're being warehoused there. They're surplus humanity. So it's like the logic of a prison. And so everybody there is a human shield. But there was a place I like to eat because it's real cheap in Tel Aviv that was right next to.
I'm gonna say this because its comment is up. There's another point in this debate I was playing because we don't have time to watch it, where the counter-revolutionary anti-communist guy tried to explain, like, well, I understand you're making a great point, Matt, but there's nothing we can really do because it's like a religious issue. He pushes the whole religious issue thing. You know what I mean? How these Palestinians will never coexist with Jews. Max is Jewish, and he went to Gaza multiple times. Remember what I said earlier this week, CJ? These people keep framing Palestinians as people who just want to kill Jews. That is disgusting, anti-Semitic, Zionist talking points. Because Jewish people like Max Blumenthal, Katie Halper, and many people who support the Free Palestine movement, they are not threatened by Palestinians. It's if you support the Zionist project or not. But anyway, so let me continue. I just had to add that point because I won't have time to show you that guy trying to make this about religion. So last part, and I'll wrap it up.
The defense ministry called Hakiria, and all the generals would be in there, the intelligence chiefs. Good Mediterranean food. Are they human shields? Is building this giant tower in the middle of a residential area in Tel Aviv? Are they making those people human shields? If that gets hit by Hezbollah and people die nearby, were they being used by Israel as human shields? No one will say that because the logic is so discriminatory towards Palestinians. No one will consider their position. And then the other point I wanted to make is just about the use of violence in this conflict by Palestinians who have tried everything. I mean, I don't know if you know about what the Great March of Return was. It was sanctioned by Hamas, but it was a grassroots initiative in Gaza to just march without weapons like guns to the wall that surrounds them. And they were shot one by one in the legs. Many of them were killed. Journalists were killed covering it. It was a complete bloodbath. And that's when the society said, you know what, we can't win with this tactic of, walking to the fence and just asking them to let us in. They don't want us. That's
now I'm gonna end on that point, but you guys see, that's why I reject the PMC left who weaponizing their pacifism against the Palestinians, because the Palestinians had tried. So if I ever talk to Dr. Cornel West again, my question to him will be, what do you suggest the Palestinians do? And I promise you guys, the answer from any, not just Dr. West, but any PMC left, essentially will be, they will say the ninth version of this, they'll die politely. They're going to say a ninth version of that. Because they tried peaceful movements, they tried BDS, which was supported by every single Palestinian organization that was shut down illegally by Western governments. They tried the Great March of Return and many other peaceful actions, and they died because of it. So my answer to people like Dr. Cornel West, who I agree largely with this issue, who I'm glad is saying good things about the Palestinians, what do you suggest they do? What do you suggest they do? And as someone who paid taxes that fund the apartheid genocide of the Palestinian people, I am not going to condemn them for engaging in the same terms of engagement that the Israelis do, but on a way smaller scale.